Hey bakers, I'm here today to show you a fun project that you can do if you're kind of stuck inside and just needing some yummy snacks or kind of something to kind of do to heal yourself a little bit. So one of my favorite things is making cakes. The problem we have at the stores right now is a lot of people have bought the flour, so you only have these pre-made mixes. So I like these mixes, they're pretty easy to do. The problem is sometimes they taste a little bit artificial. So what I'm gonna do today to show you a few tricks for how you take a box like this and elevate it with other ingredients. This is a devil's food mix. It's one of my favorites, but again, it kind of tastes artificial chocolate. So we're gonna add a few things to it. If you look at the back, you'll see a recipe. Don't follow this recipe. Follow the one in your Google Classroom. We're gonna add a chocolate pudding mix. What this does is it adds some softness to the cakes and a little bit of moisture. We're gonna add a little bit of sour cream. That might seem really strange. And so why we add sour cream to a chocolate cake is it adds a little bit of tang and a little bit of zest. It also adds a little bit of moisture. We're gonna add coffee instead of our liquid. So this is a K-cup. If you don't have a Keurig, you can also get these instant Vias and just dissolve them in a little bit of hot water. So what the coffee does is it enhances the chocolate flavor. You don't actually taste the coffee, that taste kind of bakes out, but it brings out that chocolatey flavor because chocolate and coffee go really well together. Oil is something we would always add. It kind of gives the fat content to the cakes. And we're gonna add eggs, as we always would, because eggs help the cakes kind of rise and stay kind of light and airy. This recipe also asks you to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Today, I'm opting for some coconut because I really love that coconut chocolate flavor, but coconut, vanilla, which one you decide is up to you. Start by getting your mixing bowl, and then you're gonna start adding the ingredients. The bags usually come like this. You can sometimes pull apart. Out of the bowl. This makes a good little trash receptacle so we're not making a mess. Add the pudding mix. So we have our dry ingredients, and now we're gonna start to add kind of our, what we call our wet ingredients. And those are things that are wet at kind of room temperature. So our oil, we're gonna add 3/4 cup of oil. So anything that's a liquid at room temperature, you use a glass measuring cup. So this guy here. It's good to kind of get down where you can see. And so I'm getting down where I can kind of see the lines. If you see it above, you don't get quite the right perspective, but I want to be at eye level here, and I can see right there, 3/4 cup, ready to go. So I'm going to pour that in. We're also going to add our sour cream. Sour cream is a wet ingredient, but it's not really a liquid, so we're still going to use our dry measure cups. That's these guys here. Sometimes they come in plastic, sometimes metal. So you might notice there's no 3/4 cup measure. You got to do a little math. You're going to do a 1/2 cup and then a 1/4 cup, and together that'll make 3/4 cup. A spatula comes in really handy if you're going to get sour cream from in here to here. Thankfully, I have my Star Wars spatula today, so Darth Vader is going to help us out. And you're just going to use the spatula to press it down. Wipe it off on the edge of the bowl. It's a 1/2 cup down. Gonna put this in the sink. We clean as we go. Again, spatula presses it down. And then you can scoop it back out again. Sometimes it might flick across the room. Just make sure you clean as you go. The next thing I'm going to add is my coffee. So the recipe asks you to dissolve 1 tablespoon of espresso powder, or this Via, in a ½ cup of warm water. You can heat the water in the microwave and add the Via, or if you have coffee at home, I do, you can just use actual coffee. You don't need to use the espresso powder. So I made one of these guys for myself and I saved some for this recipe. Again, I'm going to get down on eye level. I want a ½ cup. And then that's going to go right in here. Clean up our spill. So we have 2 ingredients left to add. We added our coffee, our sour cream, we added our dry ingredients, we added the oil. Next we add eggs. I like to add eggs in a separate bowl. That way if you get shells, you can kind of pull them out. So it says 3 eggs. Crack on the bowl. If you crack on the... Check and see if we have any shells. I don't see any. Take a fork and you kind of just break up the yolks and the whites. That kind of starts mixing them a little bit. Doesn't need to be completely one color. You just kind of want to break up those yolks. And then you're going to add that into our mixing bowl. Last thing we need is our extract. Again, I'm using coconut, but you can use vanilla if you like. So 2 teaspoons. I like to pour to the side of the bowl. If you pour over the bowl, what happens is you might spill and then you get too much coconut in your bowl. Make sure you take off this tab. So if nothing comes out, like it didn't for me, it's because usually there's a sticker on there. Okay. 1. 2. Let's do a last check. Make sure we got all of our ingredients. Cake, pudding, sour cream, oil, eggs, extract, and coffee. Looks good to me. Keep my spatula handy just so I can scrape down my bowl, and we're ready to mix. If you're taking classes at the Burnett Center, you've been spoiled by our stand mixer. It does all the work for us. A lot of folks don't have one at home. I use one of these hand mixers. I also call it a grandma mixer because I got it from my grandma. I've had it for many years. So this is a little less complicated than a stand mixer. You just have one kind of knob. As you would with any mixer, you don't want to start at the highest speed. You're going to just have a huge big mess. Start low. So put it in the bowl, start low, and just kind of move it around the bowl. Once your dry ingredients are kind of weighted down and partially mixed, then you can kind of kick up the speed to maybe a medium. On this one, the medium is called mix. And eventually you can kick it up to full speed if you want. You want to pause a few times to scrape down the sides of the bowl. If you can see here, sometimes you get powders or you get sour cream stuck on the side. So Darth Vader's going to come back again and help us out. Resist the temptation to lick this. It has raw eggs in it. So even though it looks good, it's not really good for us. You don't want to eat raw egg whites. All right, so our batter is ready. This particular batter is a little thicker than typical cake batters, and that's mostly because of the sour cream. It does not mean you're gonna have denser cakes. It just means kind of before they go in the oven, you have a little bit thicker batter. We're about ready to kind of get these guys in our cupcake tins. A few steps to take if you haven't already done it. So you wanna line your trays. I'm kind of feeling the spring vibe, so I have these pretty green liners. Just one liner per tray. The other thing you want to make sure you do is you preheat your oven to 350 degrees and let it heat completely. I did that before we started. I recommend that you do too, but if you forgot to do it, it's no worry. You just got to make sure it's up to 350 degrees before you put your cupcakes in the oven. I'm going to move my mixer just so we have a little bit more room. Eject my beaters, and we'll set this over here. Now, the best way to get batter from this bowl into these cupcake tins is with an ice cream scoop. Now, all ice cream scoops have a shape of a release like this. So if you don't have something like this, you can also use a measuring cup. But the ice cream scoop is about the perfect size and the perfect amount of batter for a cup. So you want to scoop it in, get it full like this. You want to hold it above. Don't touch the liner, but hold it above. I always picture like a UFO hovering over something, and then you release. And it kind of just plops down in. You're gonna want all of your cupcakes to be the same size, so this keeps your measurements accurate. If you have a smaller one, like say I just put a little bit in, what's gonna happen is these guys are gonna get cooked and this guy's gonna burn to a crisp. If you find that they're uneven, you can always just kind of go back through and add a little bit more batter and even them out. So we will continue to fill. I'm going fast, you can take your time. One thing I had mentioned before is this is a little bit thicker batter. What I like about that is if you want to add little hidden treats in your cupcakes, like a Reese's peanut butter cup or York peppermint patty, this batter is sort of thick enough to hold those things in place while they bake, and then you have a little surprise for your guests. So this one's all full. Last thing I'm going to do before I put this in the oven is give it just a little tap. You're not dropping it, you're not throwing it. The tap just kind of helps knock the air bubbles out. Then you take it over to the oven and you set it in. We're gonna set our timer. So cupcake baking time kind of varies. Always start kind of at the lower end and then give it more time if you want. If you set it at kind of the high end of the time range, oftentimes what happens is your cupcakes will burn. So I'm gonna set my timer here. Hit start. The more you bake, the more you get to know your ovens. As an example, the Burnett Center If you've been in baking, you know our ovens run kind of cold, so usually you need a little bit more time than the recipe says. My personal oven at home usually runs kind of hot, so I know that things will be done faster than they come out. And the best way to know your oven is just get an oven thermometer. All right, well, we got this timer set. I'm gonna finish piping these other ones. And once these guys come out, I'll put the second batch in. I'll see you guys in a few. Hey guys, so our timer just went off. It's time to check our cupcakes. There's a couple ways to tell if a cupcake is done. One, if you have a toothpick, you're gonna stick the toothpick into the cupcake and you wanna pull it out and see if there's any crumbs. You don't wanna stick it right in the middle of the cupcake, you wanna stick it to kind of the side of the middle. If you don't have toothpicks, don't fret, there's another trick, and I'm gonna show you that trick right now. Grab a hot pad, let the steam come out, and then pull out the tray. So toothpick, you would stick it kind of right here. If you don't have a toothpick, you're gonna take your finger and you're gonna poke the cupcake. I know that sounds funny. Poke it and see if it bounces back. Mine did not, it kind of left a little bit of a dent. That means it's not quite ready yet. So we're gonna put it back in for a couple more minutes and then we will test again. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Have them out, I'm poking. And it bounces back. You almost want it to look like it's a rubber cupcake. So we're gonna set it here on our trivet, let it cool. You never wanna frost a hot cupcake or you have a little landslide of frosting, which sounds cool, but it's not. I'll see you guys in a few. Hey guys, so our cupcakes are cooling. Now is a great time to make your frosting. I'm gonna use the same mixer, but make sure you clean the beaters. You don't want cake batter in your frosting. Start with your butters, and you want them to be soft, like room temperature. See how I can kind of squish this a little bit? It's not liquid, but it's soft and pliable. Best way to get it soft, plan ahead, take it out of the fridge. If you forgot to do that, you're just gonna microwave the sticks for 10 seconds at a time until they feel kind of soft and room temperature. Again, you do not want them to be liquid. So you're gonna take the wrappers off. This wrapper is a great way to keep your hands clean. Just kind of pop it in there. 1, 2 sticks. We're gonna add sugar in a little bit. You don't wanna add everything at the beginning. This is a little different when we did our cupcakes. You wanna get the butter kind of whipped first, and that's so you don't have chunks of butter in your frosting. So with this mixer, you're gonna kind of get the butter softened and whipped up. You might find that it sticks to the beaters, and once we add the sugar, it's all gonna come together. So don't worry if that happens. It's gonna all come together anyway. So the next thing we're gonna do is start measuring our sugar. You take a bag like this. I'm gonna get some scissors, so I'll be right back. I'm just gonna go grab those. It's always good to have some scissors in your kitchen. We're gonna cut open this bag. Now the recipe asks you to sift. What that means is you're gonna use a sifter, this is mine, to get the lumps out. So the best way to do that is place your sifter over the bowl. Sometimes they fit perfectly. This is a great one that has a little rest. And then 1 cup at a time, you're just gonna kind of measure your ingredients. So a lot of times in baking, we practice leveling with a knife. Another way you can level is you can use the bag to kind of just like make sure you get a nice even cup. See, that's a cup of powdered sugar. We're gonna add that into here. And then you can shake, kind of and tap like this, and kind of get all the sugar in. We do this to get the lumps out. So I'm gonna keep sifting, and I'll be back in just a moment once I have my sugar added. All right guys, took a while, but I sifted all my sugar. We have this big mountain of sugar in here, and next we're gonna mix it. Unless you want kind of a blizzard of sugar, you're gonna wanna start on the lowest setting. This powder will fly everywhere. Trust me, it's not going to be fun. So we'll start low. Even if it feels boring, just let it slowly mix. And then you can kind of kick up the speed a little bit. You might find that your frosting isn't quite coming together, and all that means is you probably need a little bit of liquid. So you can use heavy cream, you can use milk, coconut cream, any kind of milk to kind of help thin it just a little bit so it comes together. So I'm using this milk. 2 tablespoons should do the trick. And then we resume mixing. Hey guys, as you can see, our frosting has finally come together. It's taken a little time, but this is the consistency you want. Now we have some choices. You can add flavoring. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of this coconut extract. We had it in our batter. Let's add it to our frosting too. So just 1 teaspoon. You don't need to use coconut. You can use whatever flavor you like. I'm gonna measure to the side. I don't wanna spill in the bowl, so I'm gonna measure over here. Just go nice and steady. I'm gonna add that. The other thing you can do is you can add a little bit of cocoa powder. So about 1/4 cup of cocoa powder per batch of frosting. We'll add some chocolate. So it might seem excessive. Coconut and chocolate's a good flavor pairing. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna add a little bit of this cocoa powder in here. Now we mix. As you can see, same as when we did our cupcakes, we're getting a little bit on the side. We're gonna call back Darth Vader, he's gonna help us out. This just makes sure you get every ingredient in the frosting. Nobody wants a lump of cocoa powder in their cupcake frosting. You can scrape that right on the beaters if you want. And then we mix. All right, friends, we have our chocolate coconut buttercream here. And once your cupcakes are completely cool, it is time to frost. So you want to make sure you get all the frosting for your cupcakes. As tempting as it is to lick this, let's use a butter knife and we're going to just sort of scrape off the excess, like so, just so we're not wasting anything. There you go. Now is my favorite part. You get to decorate your cupcakes. These are completely cooled, which takes either time and patience or the use of a refrigerator if you're in a hurry. But I recommend doing it at room temperature if you have the time. You get your cupcake, and I'm going to show you 2 ways. One way with a knife and just kind of spreading it, and the other way we're going to learn how to pipe. So we're going to start by just kind of spreading it with a knife. Take a butter knife, take your frosting. You want to get a good amount of frosting, put it on, and then just kind of swirl it around to cover the top. You want to make sure it's evenly coated. This is kind of similar to painting. There we are. We'll set that aside. The second way is a little trickier and it takes a little bit of expertise and some supplies, but it's piping our frosting. So you can use a piping bag like this. I got these on Amazon. Or you can just use a large Ziploc bag if you don't have one. Similarly, you can use piping tips. This is my favorite piping tip. But you can just, if you don't have a piping tip, you can also just snip the bottom of the bag and then you have kind of a makeshift circle. I'm gonna use this tip. You drop it down in the bag like this. Find any kind of cup or vase, and this just helps you kind of steady your bag while you fill it. I'm gonna pull the bag over. You wanna have sort of an excess of bag here, and this just helps keep your hands clean when you're piping so you don't get frosting all over yourself. Using either a knife or your spatula, you're gonna kind of scoop frosting into this piping bag like so. Alright guys, I switched to my Darth Vader spatula. I found the knife was taking a little too long, but whatever you have at home, just make sure you kind of get a good amount of frosting in here so you don't have to keep refilling. The next step, either if you do or don't have a piping tip, you still want to snip this tip. If you're using just the bag itself and you don't have a tip, snip kind of closer to the top so that you get a smaller cone of frosting. If you have the piping tip, the trick is making sure that the decorative part of the tip comes through the opening without the entire tip falling through. Sometimes you kind of have to trial and error. We're going to snip right here. Press that down, not quite enough. So we need a little bit more. Perfect. What you want to have is you want to have these little openings, these little triangles, come all the way through, and that's how you get that cool pattern. So here's how we pipe. It's a two-hand job. You want one hand up top, just so the frosting doesn't go upwards, and the other hand actually goes right below it. Your hands will be touching. Put the tip down in the center of the cupcake. It should almost be touching the cupcake. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna squeeze. You're not gonna lift as you go. You're gonna keep it pushed down. Gravity's gonna help you. If you aren't lifting as you pipe, the frosting has nowhere to go but to the outside parts of the cake, and that way the whole thing gets covered. So let me show you. I'm squeezing, I'm not lifting. You can see it's not really moving up, but that way the frosting goes out. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And when you have it all the way to the edges like so, now you can lift and you get this pretty little cone of frosting. Hey guys, now that we've frosted our cakes, it's time to add some decorations. I wanted to present you with a few fun options, but really whatever you like to do, use your imagination. Easter's around the corner, and although I don't partake in all celebrations, I do love Easter candy. So I picked up some marshmallow peeps and some Cadbury cream eggs at the store. They're two of my favorite decorations. What you can do is you can build a little nest out of coconut. So we're gonna take our flaked coconut and put it on our cupcake. Probably gonna have to do a little bit of sweeping afterwards. Coconut's kind of messy. So you make a little nest. You take a peep and you put it on its nest. Sometimes, if it falls off, you just might need to kind of secure it with a little bit of frosting. There he goes, safe and sound. For this cupcake, I'm just gonna put a Cadbury cream egg right on top like that. It's two desserts in one. The other thing I love to do is to sort of make my own sprinkle mixes. So this is a mix I made on several different mixes that I bought at the store and just combine them all into one big jar. So just take a pinch full of the sprinkles and sprinkle them on your cake. All right guys, here are our finished products. I'm really excited to see what you make, and I'm really excited to see how you decorate them. So please share your baked goods with us in your classroom, and I'll talk to you soon.